What's up, everybody? Good morning. Just out of the shower. I recorded a video earlier, which I may or may not post. Probably will see. Welcome. Welcome. So there's no agenda for today. In fact, there rarely ever is. This is, as always, a transmission of energy. These are activations. As a being, as an apparent apparition here in front of you, I'm serving the role of activator, transmitter of cosmic consciousness, of Christ consciousness, of source consciousness, universal awareness. So, I can call myself whatever I'd like. I can call you whatever I'd like. I am you. So, I'm a dragon. I could say that I'm an Atlantean high priest, but the truth is I am Atlantis. I am Shiva. I am Krishna. I am Christed. And so are you. And those words may feel heavy, and if you take them on as identities, psychological identities, that's very challenging. I don't recommend it. God is all there is. So to realize that you are God really is to realize that you are the source of all of that you are the source of Atlantis. You are the source of Shiva, of Krishna, of Christ. You are the source of everything. Those are all images, and you are the source of that. If those words actually mean something real, then they're only pointing to your own self. They're pointing to that which is your own source. And you are your own source. You are the source. Not the limited sense of self, but you already know that. That's an illusion. It's an illusion of an illusion. It doesn't actually exist. So, what's the purpose of this transmission? Well, it's what all of life is doing constantly if you're paying attention. The appearance of this body is only because of the fact that you have not been paying sufficient attention to yourself or to life. And when you receive this transmission, actually, when you surrender to yourself completely, and you remove all the divisions between yourself, and you surrender completely to the absolute truth, undivisibly, of who and what you really are, you stop allowing yourself to be abused or exploited by the mind, by anybody. You have no desire to abuse and exploit, and no desire to be abused or exploited. That means in any and all relationship. And that means you have to stop and stand up and roar. You have to tell the truth. You have to refuse to allow anybody, your family, your parents, your friends, your lover, your partner, your strangers in society, your bosses, your coworkers, anybody and everybody, stop allowing them to abuse you, and stop living in suffering, and stop allowing other people to drag you into their suffering. Suffering is a choice. If people choose to suffer, they choose to suffer. Period. The ego, which chooses its own suffering and wants to pretend it's not, doesn't like to hear that. Well, that's too damn bad. I'm tired of digging these holes, Grandpa. Well, that's too damn bad. Right? Okay. That's obviously the ego. Right? Of course, it's all powered by God, by consciousness. So, I'm going to bring that to you in a higher way. Right? If people want to believe that they have no choice but to suffer, and that life is suffering and they have to suffer, well, that's too damn bad. It's too damn bad. If people want to believe that their life is doomed and destined to be shitty because of some physical circumstance of their body or the society they're born into, that's too damn bad. That really fucking sucks. Because it means that that person, despite all the suffering they've endured, has refused to go that last little inch, that last little millimeter, which will restore themselves to themselves completely. People will come up to the edge of hell and then refuse to actually walk a step beyond hell. Because when you leave hell, you leave behind everything you've ever known and everybody you've ever known, including your own self. As the image, as the person who has suffered and struggled and fought and bled, You give all of that up. You give all of that up. All of that is given up. The image of the one who has fought their way to the castle beyond the Goblin City to take back the child you have stolen from me. Because my will is as strong as yours and my kingdom is great. You have no power over me, right? Beautiful movie, that. Labyrinth. If you haven't watched it, Labyrinth, David Bowie, watch it. But the one who has fought their way to the castle beyond the Goblin City, right? To take back the child that you've stolen from me, right? That one. The one who says, for my will is as strong as yours and my kingdom is great. The one who says, you have no power over me. You see? That is the moment in which the separate sense of self dissolves back into cosmic consciousness. And cosmic consciousness then reveals itself to be all there is. And the illusion of being the one who is oppressed by the other, both the oppressor and the oppressed are illusions. There is no oppressor and there is no oppressed. There is only the appearance of contraction and expansion, contraction and expansion. And that expansion, which is the counterpoint to contraction, is not total and true expansion. Just like the dark or the light that is the opposite of darkness is not true light. That's a limited factor. All limited factors are false. And all limited factors are that which creates the apparent play of duality. Duality is an illusion. It's an illusion. It's the ego that wants to believe in the base nature of duality so it can feel that it has a certain station in a hierarchy, so it knows who it gets to punch and who gets to punch it, in order to structure a system of punishment and reward. Who's good and who's bad, who's worthy, who's unworthy, so that you can indulge in violence without feeling guilty for it. And that's the game of the ego, because the ego is violence, it is hatred, it is jealousy, it is fear, it is envy, it is doubt, it is ignorance, it is the narcissist, it is the borderline, it is the bipolar, it is the schizophrenic, it is all of that. Every single so-called mental illness is just a manifestation of the ego, of the mind, which is mass, it's conditioned, it is social, it is society, it's the world. The individual is the world is the individual. There are no individual illnesses, there are no individual mental problems, there are no individual mental diseases or disorders or illnesses. It's all mass, it's all society, it's all civilization, it's the world. The world is one. All is one. One is all. All for one and one for all, baby. We are those musketeers. Hello, obviously. One for all and all for one. That's the truth. And we pretend that we have individual minds. You don't. Or individual hearts or souls. It doesn't work like that. There's only one heart, one soul, one mind, one consciousness, one being. That's the meaning of there's only one God. It doesn't mean my God is real and your God is fake. Those are just images, idols that people pit against each other. My idol is better than your idol. My words are better than your words. My mythos is better than your mythos. My book is better than your book. My story is better than your story. All stories are false. They're all of the mind. They're all contrivances. And yet they all have to be. Why? Because physics is physics. Because the non-physical is the non-physical. And therefore physics, wherever it appears, is eternally the self-same. And so the mind, wherever it appears, always carries and bears the exact same stories because it has to. Because it's a limitation. It's a prefigured, prefactored, preordained, precalculated, mechanical theater. All physics is predetermined and precalculated, prefactored. It has to be because it's a limitation. So in every universe, there's a Buddha and a Christ and a Krishna and a Shiva, obviously, because that's what has to be. Even if the names get called something different in different languages, it doesn't matter. The exact same themes, the same stories, the same so-called archetypes, that's all eternally present. Why? Because it has to be. because you have pure consciousness. And when pure consciousness is walked away from, that's called experience, that's called mind, that's called thought, memory, desire, ego, which is a thing in a sphere. It has a center and it has a periphery. It's a sphere, like the planets, and therefore subject to gravity, electromagnetism, strong and weak nuclear force, and dark matter, dark energy, which they're still figuring out, right, on an analytical, scientific level of physics and so on. So, anything that has a center has a periphery, and is therefore a limitation. It doesn't matter how big it is. The smallest star or the smallest atom and proton and electron and neutron and gluons and quarks, you have the smallest, let's just stick with the atoms and the protons, all of that, or neutrinos, whatever. The smallest, anything that can be measured as a particle, even if you can measure something as a wave, distinct from another wave, it has a center and it has an outside. Anything with a center and an outside is a limitation. That means there are only a certain number of factors present. There are only a certain number of fixed permutations it can have. If a nucleus has 0 protons, then it's not an element. If it has 3 protons or 29 protons or 87 protons, then it's a certain element. And there's a certain point past which a nucleus cannot remain stable and continue to hold on to its protons, electrons, and neutrons without totally destabilizing. And so certain elements can only be held together artificially in a laboratory setting. So there is an absolute limitation and cap upon how many elements can exist as combinations of, electron, proton, neutron sitting around a nucleus in this physical universe. There is an absolute elemental limitation, because there is an absolute physical limitation to time and space and thought. And everything within the field of time, space, and thought is known. It may not have been described perfectly underneath the so-called modern scientific system. It never will be. But that doesn't mean it isn't known. It is known. The entire structure of time, space, and thought is known, absolutely. And it must be. It is a limitation. So the ego is always the ego, thought is always thought, the mind is always mind. It doesn't matter whether it's on Earth or Venus or the Andromeda or any of the other trillions of galaxies out there with their tens of trillions of planets. Wherever there is mind, wherever there is the sensation of I am, and the awareness of that, and therefore memory, wherever there is memory, there is limitation. Ego, time, space, which is distortion. Division, which is trauma, suffering, violence. Wherever that is, it's the same thing. Physics is physics. Period. Why is that? Because the non-physical is the non-physical. Period. And that speaks for itself. Period. So everything that is and everything that is not can be known absolutely. You can know that which is absolutely. And you can know that which is not absolutely, as your own self. And the whole structure of art, science, religion, philosophy, and psychology tells you that you can't. Because that's ego. Ego, which is time, space, and thought, memory, can never know itself. It can only create a distorted image of itself. And it is already a distorted image. Only consciousness can know consciousness, as well as ego. But ego cannot know consciousness. It can't even know itself. Because the minute ego knows itself, ego knowing itself is the very dissolution of ego. When time, space, and thought, when the limitation, when unconsciousness becomes aware of itself, that very awareness is the light which dispels the shadow of the ignorance, of the unconsciousness. So unconsciousness, when it knows itself, it's no longer unconsciousness, it's gone. So ego can never know itself, because the moment it does, it's no longer ego, it's gone. And all that's left is pure consciousness, which reveals itself to have been the only thing that has ever existed. So ego, unconsciousness, ignorance, darkness, evil is a very quaint illusion created and projected by thought, by memory. And in ignorance, one identifies with that memory and then goes about chasing other objects created of that same structure of memory, projecting onto them ideas of salvation or escape or refuge. You see how ridiculous that is? It's like running into enemy territory, pretending that it's some holy sanctuary where you'll be kept safe. The mind cannot fix the mind. Mind cannot save the mind. There's no refuge in the mind from the mind. There's no refuge in memory from memory. There's no refuge in pleasure from pain. People keep trying to seek refuge in pleasure from pain. There's no such thing. You can't do that. It doesn't work. Because pain and pleasure are one. They give birth to one another. They're the same thing. And they're both just trifles of the mind. Who cares? There's nothing wrong with either of them, with pleasure or pain. But they're trifles. There's no refuge to be found in either of them. Hedonism and asceticism. Trifles. Toys. Ignorances. What you're looking for is your own self, which is eternally present, untouchable, incorruptible, inevitable. And the realization of the self is absolutely inevitable. And without the appearance of the ego coming and going, there would be no notion of self-realization, because the self in truth is eternally realized. The self is eternally self-realized. In fact, the self is eternally self-realized beyond any notion of self-realization. So self-realization is a notion of the ego. Just like liberation and awakening and enlightenment are all notions of the ego. So you can even call enlightenment and darkenment. Same thing. They're all notions of the ego, of the mind, of memory, which is the result of no love, the experience of separation from love and from God. So when there's the experience, and all experience is the experience of separation, because there's story, there's movement, there's memory, this was one way and now it's another, that's called separation, division. And when there's pure absolute consciousness, there's no memory, no desire, no time, no comparison, no need for anything. And whatever must appear to be going on, must appear to be going on. But appearance is only relative to the center, to the ego, to the memory. If all beings sit here without memory, there's no comparison. And therefore nobody to say that they're seeing anything, or that they remember anything, or that they want anything. So all remembrance and all wanting, all desire, all craving comes from memory. And memory is comparison. There's no memory without comparison. And what is being compared are images, which are all distortions, lesser images, remembrances, memories of the real thing. And the image, the memory, can never match the real thing. And so people go chasing memories, we go chasing memories, but we're chasing ghosts and phantoms, stand-ins for the real thing. Because the real thing is God, the real thing is truth, the real thing only happens once, and in fact it happens never, because there's no happening in it. And so all memory is secondhand. All craving, all desire is secondhand. And yet, the conditioning is to identify with the memory, with the desire. And therefore you identify with gender, you identify with race. And then you believe that you have to have some identity of religion, or sexual orientation, or fixed sexual orientation, which goes with fixed gender, and fixed culture, and race, and religion, and all of that. It's all the same thing, and it's all stupid. And so you think you have to have some identity as a man or a woman, or gay or bi or straight, or black or white, or Christian or Muslim or Catholic or Buddhist or Jew or atheist or magician or occultist or whatever. Neo-pagan, whatever the fuck. You think you have to have some identity, some name, and you believe in concepts of a true name, a real name. What's your real name, right? There are no real names. There are no true names. There are no true identities. The only true identity is to be identified with the entire universe, with the entire cosmos. And if you are actually here as that, basking in that, living in that, you don't need to fall back on the secondhand notion of identifying with it. Even the identity with the universe is an attempt by the ego to dissolve itself and get back to the original state. But the ego cannot get back to the original state because the ego was never in the original state. And what is in the original state has never left it. And you are that. And so you've only to realize that, merge into the true I, into the true self, and then the ego is revealed to have never been. It's just a ghost, a phantom, a fantasy, a concept. It's not real. And yet the entire basis of psychology is the belief that the ego is real. The entire basis of philosophy as a practice is the belief that the ego is real. The entire basis of religion, science, and art is the belief that the ego is real. It's not. And if you don't get that, then all of your religion, science, art, psychology, and philosophy are just violent weapons of self-removal, in the worst of ways. And all true religion, science, art, psychology, and philosophy all true logic ends with its own termination. So all true philosophy, science, religion, art, psychology, logic ends in silence. And that silence is eternity itself, reveals itself to be absolute eternity, which is the true self. And so all of those objects are one thing, and that's thought, memory, the mind, which is either functioning logically or illogically. If it's functioning illogically, it doesn't make any difference anyway. It makes no sense. And if it's functioning logically, well, that logic is just a tool. Logic is a limitation. It's a function. It's a tool. Just like a hammer or a screwdriver or a chisel. You pick it up when you have something to do with it, and when you're done, you put it down. It's not a god to worship. And it's not the end-all be-all. In fact, it's a limited, pitiful, petty little instrument, which pales in comparison to the truth of what you are, the living truth of your own being. So don't worship the mind or anything in it. That's ridiculous. And all logic is emotion, is desire. Logic doesn't function without desire. And all desire is emotion. So therefore, anybody who says that they're logical and not emotional is just a liar. That's the ego, which doesn't know itself. Thought, emotion, desire, memory are one. That's called the mind, or the ego. And it is 100% physical. It is pure physics. Thought is pure physics. So you don't need psychology, that's trash. You don't need philosophy, that's trash. You don't need theology, that's trash. The mind, or thought, which is memory, desire, is a thing of 100% and pure physics, and you can know the physics of it directly, through direct contact with it, not mediated through somebody else's interpretation or opinion of it. You don't need interpretation of anything. You don't need opinion about or of anything. You only need direct contact with the absolute suchness that is all that is. And that is the birthright and the natural station, you could say, of all being. It's nothing special, and it's nothing that can be contrived. It's all there is. So, philosophy, psychology, theology, these are just ways of making oneself feel important, of making oneself believe that they can help people. It's just shifting around the grains of sand that are already on the beach, making nice designs, but you're not getting anywhere. You can make all the nice designs in the sand. You can build all the nice sand castles and sand moats and sand empires, but it's all sand. Everything you do in this world is just made out of sand. Everything is made of dust. You're just rearranging the dust and then patting yourself on the ass. But the very ass upon which you pat is also made of dust. It's all dust. And so it's dust congratulating dust. It's dust believing that its dust is better than some other dust. It's all dust. You are dust, I am dust, everything is dust. It's all dust. Now, whether you see it as corpse dust or whether you see it as stardust, that's up to you. But it's the same dust. So whether you see it as dingy and awful and hateful, or whether you see it as fucking beauty itself, that's up to you. I recommend the beauty. And even if you actually truly see it all as just wretched dust, if you actually truly see it all as wretched dust, then you give it up. And when you actually give it up, you come right into the beauty of it all. So whatever path you take, it all leads to beauty, to love, to truth, to God, to the absolute awareness of self, as pure, perfect, unconditional, absolute love, the eternal light which has no opposite, no beginning, and no end, which includes everything and excludes nothing, which needs no integration, no healing. It's beyond all of that. Integration, healing, transcendence, transformation, those are all concepts of the ego, of the mind. Enlightenment, loss of enlightenment, the need for enlightenment, lack of enlightenment, those are all concepts of the mind. Those are all mundane. Those are all petty concepts. All concepts are petty. All notions are petty. All narratives and all stories are petty. Stories of liberation, stories of oppression, stories of transcendence, they're all petty. You can enjoy them, but they're petty. Petty means that it is of no significance to consciousness whatsoever, and the mind and everything in it, from the beginning to the end of time, is of no consequence to consciousness whatsoever. Consciousness alone is consequential to itself, is sufficient to itself. In fact, it is all there is. The mind is an illusion generated within consciousness for the sake of the play and the enjoyment of consciousness. So you are consciousness either enjoying the mind in the raw, or you are enjoying pretending that you are some pitiful little creature trapped in the mind and therefore suffering it and pretending that the suffering is being done to you and that you have no choice but to suffer. That is your game. That is your pretense. That is your deliberately indulged in illusion for the sake of your entertainment. And part of that entertainment is pretending that it's not entertainment, that it's real. That's called entertainment. So you can wake the fuck up from that dream whenever you're ready to. It's up to you. But you can't come into my presence and pretend otherwise. That's what it means to be awake. It means if you want to pretend, then you have to go do it inside of your own head, inside of your own space. But if you come to me, that pretense is not allowed. My very presence demands that your masks come off. And even if you want to sit there and insist that your mask is not a mask, you will find no agreement to that here. You'll only be met with a smile, and maybe tears, maybe laughter. Not mocking you, but laughing at the incredible performance that you're putting on. I could say the ridiculousness of it, but even ridiculousness is a performance. Like an actor on stage. I am this character. Bravo, 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 bravo. You really think you have a gender and a race and a sexual orientation and a religion and a nationality and a philosophical party that you belong to? Bravo, 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 bravo. What a high act. It's very cute. It's very sweet. And if you actually are believing it, you're like one of those kids that plays a video game or a board game, and you can't stand that you're losing, like that, where you take the game seriously. It's a fucking game, and you take it to be something it's not. And that's why you suffer. And so if you're suffering, it's because you're taking something to be real that's not real. When you see firmly and clearly that what's real is real, and what's not real is not real, there's literally no possibility of suffering. You can't suffer. All suffering is a choice of ignorance because you choose to identify with what is unreal, because you think it's going to get you some benefit. Because if you don't identify with what's unreal, the people who do will what? They'll kill you, they'll hit you, they'll do something to you. which is why you try to cling to it so you can do that to somebody else and then find the pseudo protection of those who were also doing it. But that's like one thief trying to find safety and security amongst other thieves. It's stupid. It doesn't work. It's like a murderer, a killer, trying to find refuge and safety amongst other killers. It's just, what are you doing? The only refuge is a consciousness. And when ego steps into consciousness for refuge, ego has to dissolve, because only consciousness can touch consciousness. Ego can't touch it. And ego's not real. And as long as you hold on to that ego, you will never be safe or secure. You will always feel under threat, paranoid, suspicious, full of hatred, doubt, self-denial, because that's the very essence of ego. Ego cannot love. It cannot know anything other than its own cheap, second-hand reflection, and not even completely. It is always limited and will always be limited. Consciousness alone is whole, complete, absolute. And that's anyway what you are. It's all there is. So you can pretend to be what you're not until you die, and then that's a waste of your life. And the trouble with people like that is that they can't just do it alone. See, if you're conscious, you can be here alone in it. But if you're in ego, everyone else has to suffer too. And when you see people that aren't suffering, it's how dare they not suffer. And then you have all your little philosophies that justify why you are righteous in your suffering. And those people who aren't suffering, well, they're just privileged, they're just whatever they are, and if they really knew the suffering that I endured, then they would be suffering too, and they would feel bad for me, and all that self-pity. Because what you actually want is for the ego to wake up, because the people who actually are causing you suffering, the people who are actually playing the part of oppressor and tyrant, in whatever form that manifests, are all doing it from the same ego that you are suffering from. It's ego that oppresses ego. And so if you actually want liberation, if you actually want an end to the suffering of this world, then you have to step out of the illusion of ego consciousness. That's the only way. That's the only way. There's no revenge you can get on any other aspect of ego, except that by seeking that revenge, you stay stuck in that same field of suffering, and then you demand everybody else do too, while pretending that you're helping people get liberated and free. You're not. The only liberation in this world is absolute spiritual liberation, which is the natural state of your being anyway. And so it's just sobering up and waking up. It's just pulling your head out of your own ass. Pulling your head out of somebody else's ass, actually. It's breaking the chain of the human centipede. Sorry, but that's what it is. Everybody's head is up the ass of the one who came before them. You pull it out. Break that chain. Break that chain. Get your head out of the dirt. Put it up in the sky. Get upright. And then you see, oh fuck, there's nothing to do. Nothing to do and nothing to be, no one to be, nothing to become. You already are everything. You always were and always have been and always will be. And so if people want to indulge in their petty illusions, that's their business. If people actually want to believe that they have a gender, and they have a race, and they have some fixed sexual orientation, and they have some religion, and they have some obligation, and that they actually have a true name, and they actually have a real family and a real spouse and real whatever the fuck it is. You have a real job and you have a real country that you really belong to, and you have a duty to uphold the power structure of your country against whoever else. It's like, that's fucking stupid. That's ridiculous. And if you want to play that theater, go ahead. The trouble with people who play that theater, though, is they're so insecure, because the nature of that ego is insecure, that they demand that everybody else play the game too, under threat of violence. If you don't let me be violent to you, I'll be violent to you, right? Whereas when you're here and free and conscious, you can just sit here forever and not do a goddamn thing to anybody. That's why this is freedom. That's why this is total security. It doesn't require coercion. But ego requires conformity, coercion, and obedience. And whatever requires coercion, conformity, and obedience is not truth, is not God. The only thing to obey is love. absolute consciousness, which is love, which is God. That's the true meaning of obedience to God. It means surrender to the eternal truth of your own being, of your own soul, which is incorruptible, immutable, untransferable, unchangeable, untransformable. It is absolute. And there's nothing you or anybody can do about it. And anyone that wants to try to do something about it is just the ego playing a game. And that's God's game. There's no other game to play. In order for any game to exist, there has to be parameters, rules, structures, constructs, which are false. And when you're done playing the game, you go, oh man, that was fun. Right? Peace.